Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Manifest. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, Grace and Ben, they have this, very intimate moment early in the episode because of what day it is. It's the anniversary. We later on find out the 8-year anniversary of Cal being told, basically he was going to die, that they should stop all, treatments and stuff like that, because almost saying, there's nothing more they can do. And, obviously for Ben and Grace, this is a heavy day, because it's the sad thing is, if it wasn't for 828, Cal might not be here. They were kind of almost told to give up hope, that there was no hope. And a miracle happened, and luckily Cal's still alive, but this day in particular, if it was, it's just crazy. Once again, maybe, it's that thing that makes you think, is everything predestined? Does everything happen? Or does just simply everything happen for a reason? That just, the events of this episode line up perfectly with what Ben... Because, essentially, Ben finds out, because Kyle notices, a fire, someone's picture being lit up, that means it's a trial, right? And so there's a woman named Astrid, which he goes to visit, obviously, which I guess the extras are still super active, because she's like, hey, don't come in here. It's I thought you were one of those people that hates us, which I'm like, we haven't heard about them this season. The last time we heard about them was last season, so it's okay, so they must still be active enough in some shape or form. And so Astrid's trying to help out with this calling, but she also has she has a little bit of social anxiety disorder, I think, type of thing, or at least just an anxiety disorder to an extent anyway. But and the fact is, Ben keeps pushing her, and that's the scary thing, that for Ben, at the very least, I feel like seasons 1 and 2, only thing Ben ever was concerned about is okay, these people need help. I'm not sure why we're getting these callings, but these people need help, and that's what it was about. I feel like somewhere along the way he's lost that, and now it's just about, yes, it's about ensuring everyone else's survival, but he's kind of going about it the most extreme way, because it's almost you can make the arguments he almost kind of guilts Astrid in helping, because it's almost I get you got your anxiety and stuff like that, but my son fought through cancer, and it's just it felt like he was guilting her in it, and I was like, that's kind of messed up. But also at the same time, it's right, I know the pain of wanting, feeling like you're dying, and for him, it's I felt that, because I felt powerless to help my son. My son has a second chance now because of 828. The fact of the matter is, this could be his other chance. He was brought back just to have another death sentence and a death date, and it's I'm not going to let that happen. My son, who's so young, shouldn't have to go through this again and again, and it's I'm going to do whatever it takes to save my son. And in moments like that, it's it's not about saving everyone else. He tried to make that point early on, but it's at the core of it, we see what the issue is. It's he's about saving his son more so than anything else, anyone else, and it's anyone that's potentially is a hurdle in that way of saving his son. That's the core of it. That's his driving force in all of this. So I think above saving himself, above saving Mick, I think he wants to. He believes that it is just about saving everyone, but at his core, just at the very center of who he is, it's really just all about protecting Cal, which is understandable. He's a parent, considering what him and Grace went through with Cal, and worried, and they have this chance again, and not have that chance potentially stripped away because of the death date too. But Astrid, kind of summons her courage, and she goes along with him, because this leads them, the what she was seeing in her calling was stuff that led to Cody, the extra from last season. I was wondering how he was going to tie back into this, but they show up at his shop. He ends up attacking Ben, and it's oh, what are you doing here? Ben's trying to ask him questions. Luckily, Astrid backed him up and was able to knock him out. But it's all right, well, we got to find out what this is all about. Tie him up so he doesn't hurt it. But it's yeah, now he's making her an accessory to what he's doing. It's yeah, you're definitely going too far when you're you're breaking into someone's place, because he is, yes, trespassing, but also you're tying the dude up. Luckily, Michaela got put on this because the case she was working on, it was a bomb threat at a place, and this mom was saying I'm trying to pick up my child. At first I was oh, is there going to be something shady about this? But the interesting twist is it turns out that that's Cody's ex, and he basically set the bomb threat in place so that he could basically pick up his son before his ex-wife could. And so she's like, wow, like she knows how obsessed her husband is. So she's not like an exer, like, but it's like he is. Maybe like his obsession and just how crazy he's gotten about it was like what kind of led to that. I don't think she really talked too much about why they got divorced. Maybe there's other contributing factors as well, but it's like, right, in his own mind, Cody kidnapped his son so that he could hide him away because he believes 828ers are basically the end of everything. And it's like, right, I have a coworker who's an 828er, and Michaela's like, well, you know another 828er now. So it's like, okay, everything kind of comes full circle. Because in that moment, Astrid was like, whoa, I know that tattoo he has, my coworker has it, and it's like, right, they did it to celebrate their son, and obviously they find out that that's what at the core of this. Cody doesn't want to help, because he's thinking like, oh, stay away from my son. I'm doing everything I can to protect him from you 828ers. You're a menace. Blah 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 blah. And then, Astrid's having this calling, and it's saying that he's in trouble. And Ben, because the day and everything that's on the forefront of his mind, hearing about a boy in danger, that he's dying, and like it's like a father not doing anything, like it brought up some feelings of, Cal dying, and he couldn't do anything about it. So he ends up yanking on, Cody ends up, like, the chair tips over, he hits his head on the ground. I was like, oh boy, this took a turn. Luckily, Michaela and Jarrett showed up, and nothing ended up happening. He's still alive, but Astrid kind of being able to, sketch out like what's happening, even Cody being like, wait, how do you know all those details and stuff like that? And it's like, your son is in danger, let us help him. He's like, I hid him in a bunker. So Cody kind of had to change of mind in that moment. What I also think is interesting, and maybe this kind of speaks volumes, the way Ben was handling things was wrong, because Michaela was able to kind of help Astrid through it like a lot more than Ben could, so because it's interesting, because like when all this was going down, Cal saw his dad's picture on fire, being like, whoa, Dad's being tried. He's like, what are you doing, Dad? And so this no longer became Astrid's trial, and more so became his, because once again, it's so interesting. Like, maybe it always was, because remember in the beginning he didn't see the dark cloud when everyone else did. Maybe that was them being tried as well, to see how they, like, you don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is they're always under constant trial. There's no like, oh, like just Astrid trial. Like, no, every step of how they handle this, they're being tried as well. And Ben started crossing that line of like, yo, like, what are you gonna, like, you're maybe this whole thing wasn't just Astrid's trial, maybe it was his, because maybe the calling in its own way was trying to test him, because it's like, whoa, like, I mean, like I said, maybe they're always constantly being in a state of testing all the time, and it just happens to be certain events knocked them in one particular direction. Or maybe it's like Ben was meant to be led to Astrid, but maybe the entire time it was always his trial. I don't know. It's kind of fascinating, kind of think about, what's the chicken or the egg, and which came first, using this metaphor. But it's fascinating. Luckily, Michaela and Astrid were able to get there first and ended up saving Cody's son. But at the end of the day, Jarrett's like, I gotta arrest him. This is the second time you attacked this dude, plus, the restraining order and everything. And Michaela's like, even when things don't feel right, we have to do them because it is our job, and it's just like, because obviously she had that conversation earlier in the episode to Zeke about, like, Sanvi. It's like, being like, yeah, she's the one that killed the major. It's like, yeah, she had her reasons, but it went too far. But Zeke is like, yeah, when you wouldn't arrest me, I turned myself in because it was part of the path of my redemption. So maybe the same thing with Sanvi, but Sanvi's so busy at work, she'd be like, no, just arrest me later. I get it. This is my path to redemption, but we're on our way to discover so much. So it's interesting, like, at that moment she got the call that would eventually lead her to, like, getting mixed up in all this case. But, so for Michaela, it's like, this has to be what it is. And obviously she sits down with Ben about, like, do you realize, like, what you did? And for him, he explains, like, he lost himself because he just kept seeing Cal, and just for him, he just wants to protect his son. But it's like Michaela's telling him he's going too far. Like, I get, like, you want to protect Cal, but, like, how far is too far under these circumstances? And it's just, at the end of the day, like, he's even telling her, it's like, please just tell me when it's all said and done that it's all going to be okay. And it's like, I don't think Michaela has an answer to this, because no one does. But it's also like, because the fact is that Ben, it's like, for him, it's like, once again, he didn't choose to be the one in charge of all of this, but it's also like, he feels like the callings chose him, and it's like, maybe handling all this is a giant test, and like there's smaller tests amongst each test for even Ben. Because the thing is, like, they are all in this together. Like, it's not just one of them being tested, they're all being tested, including Ben. But he's so worried about everyone else failing that I guess it just never crossed his mind that, hey, maybe I'll be the one that ends up sinking this ship with just, it's like, I think it's kind of like a, it's what I've talked about before, just in a different context. It's the good place points. I know I keep going back to it, but because I think it's such an interesting metaphor, that basically all the good you does don't amount to anything when you don't have the best of intentions. And I feel like Ben currently doesn't have the best of intentions, so maybe that's what the callings are, what this whole thing is about, is trying to steer him back in the right direction. It's like, testing him by giving him such a uphill battle, while also testing him every step of the way, because of making sure, we can sometimes be our own greatest enemies, our own greatest monsters, and he's kind of shifting that way because of everything. So there's that. So luckily, everything else kind of worked out on the other ends. Another aspect to this is the Angelina thing. Dude, that storyline gets crazier and crazier with every episode, because I just don't know where, because it's like, Grace is like, yeah, how long should Angelina stay here, because Olive's decided to stay at like the college another day, and it's like, she won't tell me what went down, so it's like, do we like give Angelina the money? But it's like, yeah, she has nowhere else to go, so let's keep things status quo for now. And so Angelina's hanging out with Zeke, Beverly, and Eden and Angelina, and basically during the earthquake, which we'll get to all that stuff later, is the fact is that Angelina just happens to move at the time because she heard Eden crying, and just as she got up, it's like, oh, a chandelier fell just where she was, and she's like, oh my god. The moment she's like, it is my guardian angel, and even Grace is looking like, oh, what? Like, you getting a little weird, getting super weird, because it's like, because Beverly's like, oh, this is your daughter, and it's like, oh, even kind of saying like, oh, you two have a connection, even Beverly going, oh, she's your guardian angel. I think that's the thing, like, Angelina believes what she's latching onto so many different beliefs. Like I said, I want to give her the benefit of doubt, considering everything she's going through. She needs some serious psychological help, because she's jumping from one thing to the next to kind of latch onto, and now she's latched onto this theory, and it's like, and it's like, Zeke's power kind of activates, and it's like, Angelina loves Eden, and Eden loves Angelina, and so, and it's like, it eases Grace's mind, until later on, because Angelina's talking to Cal, and he's like, no, this is where you're meant to be. I had a calling about you before I even met you. And it's like, I think Eden's just much part of this as you are. And it's like, I think she is kind of like guardian angel. And so Cal is reconfirming, like, whether it's a delusion or not, I don't know. But at least what Angelina believes, Cal is just reaffirming it. So it's like, you can make the argument, like, someone who's kind of been a bit delusional, you play into that too much, they start believing it even more. So that's all she's kind of last. It's actually interesting, because it's like, right, she's no longer trying to be Olive, but now it's like, oh, no, Eden and me have a connection. It's just like, for now, it's that perspective. It's like, yeah, looking a little crazy, looking a little cray-cray. And so, interestingly enough, she does the whole, like, the moment she did the thing with the candle, I was like, oh boy, I was like peeking through my hands, I was like, this is going to go bad. I was like, this is rough to look at, because I'm like, this is going to go bad. And especially because, like, it's like, Grace literally seconds beforehand is like, I get, you were so right, Zeke. And then immediately, Zeke had felt Eden's fear, because Angelina is like, she's like, okay, my guardian angel, protect me, you never let anything happen to me. She burns her hand, candle rolls, the curtains catch on fire, she just stands there like, my guardian angel will protect me. I'm like, oh boy. Luckily, Zeke has his empath abilities. He felt Eden's fear. Luckily, Grace was able to get in there, grab her. Zeke had the fire extinguisher, and it's like, see, Angelina's like, see, that's my point. You didn't believe me, but look, you felt, you were able, like, Eden kind of cried out for you, so you knew it comes. So it's like, of course she never let anything happen to me. And Grace is like, get the hell out. It's like, what? This is where I'm supposed to be. Get out. Cal is not too happy about this because for him it's like, no, she's meant to be here. And Angelina's like, regardless of where you want to send me or whatever, like this isn't how you want it to turn out. The fact that it's like, but I've got to protect my family. She's like, I am part of this family. You said so yourself. You can try and push me away, but me, Cal, and Eden have a connection. You're like, oh boy, that sounds crazier and crazier because that sounds like it sounds so stalkerish and obsessive, but that's the thing. Cal brought her into this family for a reason. She has a role to play. It's a thing of like she's dangerous, but at the same time it's like there has to be a reason why. Like maybe she's a little off her rocker, maybe in just her approach, but maybe what she's saying is true. Because let's not forget, Eden did also have, like, when Grace was pregnant with her, she did have calling, so Cal is at the center of this. If he says she's meant to be here, she's meant to be here, but also, like, we never really resolved what happened now that Eda's been born, like, what happened to those callings that she technically still get them, so maybe her connection with Angelina, maybe it kind of draws that forth, like, maybe this is like a little trifecta of, like, Cal, Eden, and Angelina, that maybe there's something there is some connection that they are the trifecta centerfold of everything. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Angelina's just a means to an end. I have no idea. It's going to be interesting to see where they take that. Like I said, she's a little dangerous, but I think there is a reason. Like I said, I just think she's going about things the wrong way. She's kind of lost in her own right, like everyone is. And I think getting her back on the right path could shift the narrative. It could just easily become a thing of like, right, if we get her like potentially like, I don't know. Like I said, she's latching on to everything because she kind of has nothing right now. She's spiraling a little bit, so that's why she kind of jumps from one thing to the next, Why she's, like, holding on so tightly to this family because she has no one else. So, we'll see how this all plays out, but Cal is not happy with Grace. Obviously, Zeke's blaming himself, but for her, it's like, you can't, like, you're judging, your powers give you a judgment on someone's feelings, not what actions they're going to make. And it's like, I should have listened to Olive, and, Zeke trying to, it's not your fault either. It's just crazy circumstances. Okay, so there's that. Then there's everything with Sanvi and what's his name? Troy ended up telling her like, yeah. At first, it's kind of like he's trying to explain like, oh yeah, you should probably talk to Patrick about some of the stuff that went down at the same time y'all were dealing with the wood. They do it again and a giant earthquake. Last time it was like, oh, it was some seismic activity that happened that no one felt at the centerfold, and then it happens again and it hits everywhere, where Mick and Jerry are, where Ben and Astrid was, with Zeke and Angelina and Grace. That whole, like, it hit everywhere, and it's like, whoa, an earthquake in New York. We even find out later on there's literally a tear in the ground that like molten lava, like almost like there is a volcano but down below, but it's like, no, there isn't one. And the way Patrick was almost saying it later on, it's almost like where we found that wood, that mountain is calling it back to a certain extent. And so looking at where it was, the location of it, that's when Zombie brings this to Van. So he's like, nah, you're crazy, it's like correlating too much. But it's like, look where this hit. It hit in the centerfold of, oh, this is this cave where Zeke was. This is where the meth heads came from. Once again, here's Home Dude, which I constantly forget his name. He's the dude that came back, like, the one who died in season 1, the bad guy who was like, oh, he was the first one they found out the death date through, where he ended up drowning again. So in that moment, like, she's saying, like, it happened here. Maybe it's a sign about us using the wood. But Vance, for him, it's like, this is too important because, like, because already the higher ups already think we're getting results. If we pull back now, they'll just find someone else to replace me. But for him, it's like, it's also the thing of like, right, you want to be the one that figured out the mystery. It's not just that. Like, you want to be the one that helped you want to be there when, like, humanity makes its biggest discovery, when it comes to understanding what happened to 828 and this long history, Azure, potentially Noah's Ark and all. Like, there's so much on this that will go down in history. So it's that element of things. But when it's all said and done, though, Sanvi basically ends up, like, obviously the wood ends up getting destroyed, and I thought that's a little too especially considering there was no earthquake this time. I thought that was a bit oh, too convenient. And it turns out, oh, they faked it. They made it seem like the wood got destroyed so they can bounce out of there. But Sambi ends up returning the wood to that spot, and she tosses it in. And like the calling that Cal's been having the entire time with like the mountain kind of like going a little Pompeii-ish, or at least erupting and lava coming down and stuff. And in the moment he's looking, and when she did that, the crack filled in, like at least the lava cooled, and the lava started going back up, and like the mountain's no longer erupting. So it's like, okay, so Sami doing what she did saved the day, potentially. We don't, I mean, who knows? Like, there could be a whole, like, domino effect of what that necessarily leads to. I don't know. Because Michaela went to go look for Sambi because it's like, oh, I gotta go arrest you. So I wonder, Sambi gonna be down for that? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. Like, I think, I don't know, because it's like, luckily because she didn't get arrested, she was able to do that today. So once again, it's that thing of like, right time and right place, like everything kind of happened in the way it's meant to, or just like the ripple effects of like, right, because she wasn't arrested, she was there to kind of figure out, right, the correlation and everything, and end up taking the wood out of their possession. But I don't know if that affects like the storm cloud they saw. Like, who knows? Eventually they're probably going to find out that Sambi's responsible. Are they going to try and have her arrested for it? Is she no longer going to be a part of figuring out what happened to 828? Because for her, it's like, oh, we can find another way. This is their leading thing, but does bring the question of, like, they did do some research of, like, right, you know, like, maybe they've applied enough from what research they did do that maybe they're able to make these quote-unquote miracles happen on their own now, not necessarily needing the wood anymore. So they might have progressed enough that it could still do what they need to, even without the piece of Noah's Ark. I don't know. I caught tiny glimpses of the next episode, but it seems like we're probably going to be dealing with Ben's circumstances in court and stuff like that. What that necessarily turns into, maybe, you know, maybe this is kind of where things, the progression of things where he needs to be, to kind of rein him in a little bit before he does go too far. I don't know, you know? I mean, maybe it is like kind of similar to a Zeke thing. Maybe being in jail is exactly where he needs to be. Maybe, once again, maybe it all plays out the way it's supposed to. I don't know. I'm interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. There is no episode next week. There will be one the week after next on June 3rd. So do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.